Alright, welcome to Mr. Nelson's first YouTube Show Me video. Alright, so what we're going to do here today is first we're going to look at the simple interest formula. Remember we had been talking about this formula last week. We had used it, we had plugged in what we know. All you have to do for simple interest is find out what each letter is in your problem. So your interest, or the incurred interest, your principal, and your rate, and then the time period in which you are incurring that interest. Okay, so we've got simple interest. Simple interest is what we did last week. Today what we learn is compound interest, and we've got a new formula that is A equals your principal times 1 plus your rate as a decimal, and then raised to the power of t, which is your time. Alright, so A is, instead of I, it's A. And the reason that is because you can't have the same letter representing the same thing for two different equations. Okay, it's the same thing. It's basically the interest that has incurred. It's the amount of money that has compounded in interest. Okay, so we've got A. Most of the time you're trying to find A, so we'll look at that. We know what P is. P is the principal. The money that you start with, the money that's being multiplied by your rate. Okay, your rate here is always a percent, and you need to turn it to a decimal. Okay, and then T is your time, right? We talked about that last week. It's the time period in which you have that money either sitting in that savings account or you have that money that you're trying to pay off. Okay, so here's the first example. On the left side here is what we're looking at. This is the question. Basically it tells you, hey, the principal's 300, your rate's 19%, and I'm looking at doing it for 2 years. Okay, so I have to plug in what I know to my formula. My formula is right here at the top. Okay, so A, I don't know A, so I look, I don't know that, so it's going to still be A. P, I know what P is. P is 300, so I plug it in. R, I know that R is 19%. Remember, you have to change that percent, so that 19%, the decimal starts at the end, so I have to move it 2 times. Now it is 0.19, which you can see I put right there. So the last thing I have is that 2 years, and I plug it in right up there. Okay, then I just take that 1 and plus 1.1, and you add that 0.19 to it. Okay, that gives you that 1.19. Okay, that's where this comes in. And I take that and I square it because it's raised to the second power. Okay, so I take that 1.9 and I square it. That gives me this right here, the 1.416. Okay, and then I have to take that and I just multiply it by 300. Okay, so 300 times 1.416 is that 424.83. And that tells you the whole amount that you now owe after it's been compounded for 2 years. Alright, here is where you're going to plug in what you know to find what A is, which is the compound interest. Okay, so we look, we try to find it, and show me your work on that nice Bell worksheet and scavenger hunt paper that you have. That is compound interest. Okay, so if it ever asks for compound interest, remember to use that formula. A equals P outside of 1 plus R raised to the time. Okay, use that if they ask you for compound interest.